Hello. Good evening, good afternoon. Um, Nothing is annoying when you're about to make a video and somebody calls on the phone. I don't know who's calling me. Why is American University calling me? Why am I getting called from an American university? I don't understand. American University admission counselor. Why are they calling me? I mean, I applied at the American University very few years ago. That's like 1 year or 2 years ago, and they would accept me. So now I'm already at the Catholic University. I actually have a professor who does a PhD at the American University. So now they are calling me. I don't know what they want. Anyways, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. As you can see, it's already in the evening, and I was home the whole day. I could not record a video. It was very sunny, beautiful looking outside, but extremely cold and very windy. So even if I make a video, the video will not be able to be heard. I have to speak loud, and it's so beautiful outside, but I cannot even take a walk outside. That's how bad it is. Not like so bad, but you know, being very cold outside and windy, it's not fun despite having a very good looking outside. So anyway, um, today I am making this video, and I'm gonna make a comment regarding the rapid growth of tech companies. I am it's okay to be skeptical, and this video is not like trying to be more like conspiracy or trying not like a conspiracy, but trying to be more like skeptical or anything like that. But I have been questioning the rapid growth of tech companies and the AI, and every single day there's an announcement of can Nvidia buying AI, and AI buying Nvidia, then the AWS buying AI, then AI buying AWS. Like there's this transfer of money between corporations, and it's very hard to tell if this money is real. And there is so much unethical that goes behind the scene when this corporation is transferring money from time to time, people to people, and oftentimes, it's easy to see the number and get drawn into thinking, okay, these companies are making so much money, they're making so much profit, but AI came out in 2023. OpenAI came in 2023, and during that time, the company has not made any single profit. In fact, the company was only a non-profit. Right? Elon Musk was the leader. It was a non-profit. Now it has turned into like more a private company, and it's getting like trillions of dollars. Why am I saying this video? I say this video because the countries like United States, they they do have a very success in having more investors putting in the money, and creating success and building large investments, and it looks great. However, sometimes these corporations would create some kind of money pyramid scheme or some kind of money laundering by moving money around and eventually not actually doing anything. Traditionally, when companies grow and succeed, they hire more employees. When there is a lot of investments going in there, they hire more employees. But for the last few years or so, the corporations have not borrowed any money, and normally, big companies when they are, investing, they either borrow money from the bank, they get loans, or they host investors meeting and they ask people to invest. I know this because I moved in the United States 2016, and I know many corporations that we are sending me emails. Many new startups were sending me emails to ask for the investments. $10, $5, it's called the venture capitalists. They are raising money for their corporations, for their ideas. But for the last, I'll say, since COVID-19, corporations have shifted from asking investors money toward this investing among themselves. So what they do, they transfer money. They announce, partnership, and these partnerships do not involve any single investment banking or any single financial company. Normally, when there is any financial transactions, they will hire, a group of a bank or a private wealth management bank to evaluate the company, look at the company's assets, look at the company's investments, look at the company's performance, look at their future goals, the forecast, and then determine if it's a good transaction. And then they will eventually sort of, approve the deal. The investors will meet and sign the deal. This process takes, I don't know, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, right? And then they have to get approval from the government. But what we see right now under this 2025 is corporation is like moving like crazy, announcing not partnership, but buying shares one after the other. This is called round tripping. Round tripping is when companies do money laundering by inflating prices and manipulating numbers to attract more investors. So we have seen Nvidia like jumping so high, like $6 trillion in evaluations, and then people are buying more and more and more, right? Then we have seen Nvidia. We have every companies now. Every company is jumping on the rope. Now remember, corporations survive, especially many companies in America. There are some companies that are private. Not every company in America is publicly traded. Some companies in America they are private, and when corporations are private, they don't really announce their financial status. They don't announce their performance. They don't announce anything. Everything's private. They held everything privately. I've only worked for one company that is private. It was great. We would have food, have dinner. Investors will come in and enjoy meals. Very private, right? Everything's private. Those companies are so many in the United States, but they are also mostly popular in other countries like Asia, Europe, and Africa, and many other countries. In the United States, many corporations rely heavily on investors because it's the sort of the only way to survive. Because unlike other countries where you can just go to the government and bribe your way up and get some money from the government, here the government does not have any money, right? The only way to get money from the government is to get contract, and the U.S. contract comes with string attached to it, right? So many corporations they rely heavily on sort of asking the private individuals to chip in the money and buy shares. And when this happens, there has to be some careful analysis, ensuring that the people's money is not misused. Many older people, usually before, used to be young people. Young people used to be the one sort of investing because they had money, and younger people are also risk taker, especially college graduates who just got out of college. They have full-time jobs, they are hustling, they have money, they can easily throw in the money and invest in the company, and then go to YouTube, brag about it, how they are investing, and then the stock goes up. This is how Facebook, Meta, and many other corporations sort of grow faster. Another way was to combine companies. So you see Google, Facebook buying companies like Snap, WhatsApp, purchasing Instagram, combining all of these companies into one would bring all the investors into one, combining all the assets, and also combining all the engineers, and then making everything in one place. This was the key. This is how things used to work back in the day. Now we don't see corporations either being we don't see younger people investing in these corporations. We don't see companies buying other companies, right? We don't see any acquisitions. All we see is buying specific shares in the company, and this creates an ethical. All right. So, anyways, when I and these companies are they're all rushing around the AI, right? The AI is like the main de facto. Everybody's buying with the idea of AI, and why are they doing this? That's exactly the question that we are asking ourselves. Why exactly do companies buying AI? All right. What's the purpose of investing so much money into the AI scheme when they clearly know that AI has been around for a long time and it's not generating any revenue? But at the same time, if it's generating revenue, why are they firing workers? I mean, if they generate revenue, they should be able to hire more workers, correct? So they can increase productivity, or put the money into something else. If there's a demand, like we see in 2018, 2019, when there was a demand for software engineers, corporations invested the money in boot camps, invested the money in colleges to educate more people with computer science, educate people with skills. We see companies like Amazon investing in their employees to improve their skills, right? We see those things. We see money going into some sort of what is it? Trying to think of something. I can think of something. We see money going into community colleges, but we don't see that right now. We don't see that. We don't see anything happening at this moment. All we see is just the corporations simply saying, AI is saving money, AI is wonderful, AI is doing a great job, let's put in the money. Where's the money? We don't know. They don't report the revenue. There is no revenue, but they report having a good stock performance. Nobody's selling, nobody's buying, just the stock is going up. Young people, they're not employed, there is no jobs. So it's most likely they're using people older, the retirees, some money is from the retirees, or just manipulating the numbers. If this is the case, then there has to be some loophole. But anyways, who am I? Moving on with these AI investments, I just want to say that people, I don't know how this is gonna go. I don't know how this is gonna end. As far as I know, that many young people have sort of people. I'm gonna say young people. I'm not excluding myself, but of course, as somebody who does economics, my goal isn't to put myself into the shoes of people who are just having specific skills that need to use. Because we as economists, our goal isn't necessarily to work in a specific area. Our goal is to understand how the world works around us and make decisions around it. We can either influence the policymakers, we can influence the politicians, we can influence leaders, CEOs, and all those kinds of people. That's our goal. I can choose to work in finance, choose to work in tech, choose to do anything I want to choose to do, but I will keep in mind that I would always be an economist, and I have something to say to people who are graduating with computer science degree, finance, real estate, mechanics, right? So that's the idea of what I was trying to share today before I start off with my today's day. It's how we are seeing this kind of manipulation of the market, trying to shift things around, and there is no one like to regulate. Everybody's distracted. There's a distractions of Donald Trump. There's a distraction of government shutdown. Like these things happens really quick. Like happens from July to this day. This is the time people are focused on mostly on Elon Musk firing workers, tariffs getting sent out. Like all these distractions is the reason why we're seeing this what we're seeing today. Is it gonna backfire? I think so. Should we hope for that? Maybe, maybe not. But the point I'm trying to make here is that the end of the day, this corporation is they are operating on fear that if the government changes, if the law cuts up, they are going to be in a huge bubble. Now let me move on to today's video. Today is Wednesday, November 12th, which is marking, I guess, day number 42, if it's not 41, of the government shutdown. And tomorrow there will be a final vote. It's getting dark in here, so I'm gonna have to get in the kitchen real quick. It marks the day, much better here. It marks the day number 40 something as the government shuts down. When the government has been shutting down, and there is no hope that it's gonna. We hope tomorrow it will be the day to vote, officially to vote. Tomorrow is November 13, so it's the day that we hope that they're gonna be voting on eventually sort of releasing or opening the government, and eventually we get to see budget gets passed and we can move on with our own lives. Washington DC can have such a wonderful time here. It's been very quiet. It's been very cold. People quit, sent home the whole month plus not get paid. It becomes a bummer. I mean, because when you're working, there are things that you need to accomplish. There are things that you need to achieve, right? And when you are, doing something, you have files to do, you have things to do, but then all of a sudden government shuts down, you have to go home and sit. It creates a huge problem. But this goes to show that things like unemployment rate, things that I was talking about earlier, like 8 seconds ago in this video, about companies manipulating numbers, laying off workers, is a very tough decision. There's something going on behind the scenes that we don't get to see, and it's very hard to make decisions. It's very hard to decide which way to go, which way to, what should you do as a leader of any company, and many of us, including me, we might find ourselves in those situations as we strive ourselves to be higher, right? I could be going to school right now and making these comments and just talking, and then in the future I find myself in management position, which could land me into this kind of position where I have to make decisions. But anyways, a minute ago I just attended a workshop about real estate investments, and one of the key things that I learned is that like I was saying earlier, things have changed and businesses have changed, and sometimes it takes time to reflect. It takes time to adjust to the new trend, to the new ways of doing things. But one of the lady in this workshop mentioned how corporations like real estate, apartment management or rental management have changed how they retain clients. They showcase how, for instance, young people, you know, in order to attain tenants, to attain new renters, how you have to do so, kind of kind of a lot of work. You have to involve. You have to think about what kind of activities they can perform to keep them engaged, right? You have to think about the teams. You have to think about the people they hang out with. And yesterday I was mentioning how when I was visiting, it was yesterday, it was the day before, I think it was the day before, when I visited, went to buy food at one of the Safeway store in Northeast DC, and I mentioned how there was an apartment, a luxury apartment, a store, but there was no jobs nearby, and as person who works in the store may not be able to afford to live in those expensive apartment. But when you're building an apartment, you just have to think about those things that have changed. The way it kind of tells you how we might be in a very two different world, and it will take time to adjust, right? It will take time to switch the things are done. You send a resume runs on somebody who is 50 years old, and they are used to see a resume from 50s, and they see a resume, they reject it because they think you're not sounding the way you want to sound, right? They check your LinkedIn page, they find out you are posting about these videos, and if they don't like them, they reject you, right? Or maybe they see you are graduating from Russia, and they're like, this person is graduating Russia, doesn't not deserve to get this job, or doesn't have experience. So an example of the sharing how, for instance, when she's managing tenants, retaining tenants in a given apartment, how the dynamics, the people have changed. Like young people just sort of like they want something different, like maybe doing gardening work or doing volunteering, right? Those things people never thought about it, right? But like as you mentioned, they are just learning how those things are to help them retain clients. The gym membership activities, those things are crucial to younger generations, and they get surprised. And these things don't cost that much money, right? It just simple stuff, and then when they do these things, clients stay longer. In fact, they really mentioned that companies that do engage their tenants or invest more on retaining their clients, those companies they tend to have their rental filled pretty fast. Companies that they don't retain their clients or invest in client retention, they tend to have their apartments, their units vacated much faster. People come in and move out. There was a scenario of a guy who posted on LinkedIn where he has an apartment. Then there was a scenario of somebody coming to an apartment. That person, after coming in, he had to play like games with his friends in a different apartment, and then at some point that person left the apartment. There's another scenario of another apartment where a guy came in, and the guy had a basketball court on the premise. The guy had a restaurant nearby, a coffee shop nearby, a soccer game, right? A pickleball game court, a gym. Every Saturday will be some music, some shows, right? And then the client from this scenario, when a LinkedIn person posted, that client ended up bringing his own friend to stay on the apartment, and they ended up staying for years, right? So retaining the clients on the given apartment is the same thing as retaining employees on any given company, and corporations have been thinking about ways they can keep retaining employees. Like before, from 2016 to 2020 during COVID, companies invested on what they call talent acquisition. So they will hire somebody who can go out there and attract as many talents as they can possibly get. Host companies events, go out there for food, for parties, and then attract as many clients as they can possibly get, and then bring them to the company. This strategy was very helpful, especially when putting employees from one company to another. So a talent acquisitionist will go to, I don't know, an event and see if there is a young person, hey, that's James who work at Google as an engineer. Great. Okay, we could. Did he go to Harvard? Yes. We could bring him over and attract him over to come over and work with us, right? So there was this shift between companies back in 2019, 2020. So that was great. Today, however, companies from 2020 to 2024, companies struggled to retain workers. So they will bring in workers, workers will have depression, pressure, because there's a difference. You have somebody who's been in the company for 20 years, a person who's starting from scratch, right? They don't get along, they don't speak the same communication, they don't speak the same language. I experienced this. Spent this when I went to work in a company where my boss was like 50 years old, and there was miscommunication from the tone, the voice, condescending, sort of very pushy kind of thing, and that is not get away with it in any corporate world, in any young people's environment. And this has made it so hard for young people to sort of get jobs in the company. So what they do, they focus on companies that are highly rated by young people. So there's ratings out there that says, hey, come work for JP Morgan, come work for Wells Fargo, come work for Google. These are the best companies. They are attracting more young people, and they tend to hire young managers. Then other corporations, they struggle to find the best workers. So that has been the biggest problem. But then come 2025, when all of a sudden, because of the lack of retention from corporations, people are quitting all the time. They keep quitting and quitting and quitting. So there was a huge resignations happening from 2022 to 2023. Now come forward today, companies are now thinking, maybe we should use AI. Maybe we should invest money in the AI. This is where my conversation comes in. The AI became a trend. But who made the AI so popular though? It's the younger people. Young people are the ones who are using AI, whether for school, whether for making fun, making some videos, right? Making jokes on TikTok. And all of a sudden the AI became huge and popular, right? And these corporations now, they're saying, oh, you cannot hire younger people because can they just use AI? But here's the implication. The younger people are the ones to invest in this AI. They're the ones who build them, and they're the ones who can work, make money, and then keep building even more AI, even better. Yeah. If you don't hire them though, what are they gonna do? A, they might move out the country, which will make the United States lose many talents. Or B, you will just sit down and not do anything, and then we will have the highest unemployment rate in the country, and that will exacerbate the economy, where the government will have to spend even more money to give Medicaid, Medicare. We have many young people now living with parents, right? I live on my own, I have an apartment, but very rare do young people live with by themselves. A lot of them will live with their parents. I will make a video one time, but every time I drive in downtown in any city, whether it's Los Angeles, San Francisco, Washington D.C., Charlotte, North Carolina, Austin, Houston. All these cities, they have big apartments, very luxury apartments, each costing $50,000 plus. When you look at people who live in these apartments, are mostly women, right? And women are the most underpaid people in the United States. So if men are the most highly paid individuals in the United States, and they still don't live in these luxury apartments, and women are the most underpaid individuals in the United States, and they're the ones living in these luxury apartments, what could that tell us? Well, possibly they are living like 50 of them in one apartment, right? So they are cramped in one area, which is not good, right? Because when you become codependency, it's going to be really hard to make your own decisions, think out of the box, move on. Back in the day, young people would get an apartment for a short time, then get married, then get a house, right? Step by step. Now we don't see that. We see younger people actually living with their parents, if they're men, and women live with their friends as roommates. Because very rare do men become roommates. It's very, very rare. So this situation is going to be getting worse and worse as corporations refuse to hire younger people, simply because there is a lack of retention, or they have to save some money for some investors. Something has to be happening somewhere along the line. And the question is, who's gonna fix this? It can't be fixed if the investors are held accountable, right? Investors we need to know who are the investors, who are the people investing this money, and then focus is either you tax the investors when they sell, or you tax the corporations, right? One way or the other. There has to be some kind of hiring people, get them starting to work. But there's another problem here that we need to consider here. Another problem is there are people working. Like there are times where like yesterday, a couple of days ago, when I mentioned about people working at Safeway store, they make like $16 an hour. That is not enough money, right? At least 19, okay, 17, fine, 20, fine, $16 an hour. And these people, they're in their early late 40s, late 50s, right? You don't see young people doing cashier. You don't see young people, because they are home sitting down. They are home, thinking, what else can I do, right? They are home crunching numbers. They are home taking certificates. They are at home, applying for jobs, applying after applying. Because even this low paying jobs, when you apply, they don't accept you. Simple as that. They just reject you. For some reason, everybody's angry. Even the manager is not making enough to survive, so they choose not to hire anybody. This is something that really has been completely harder to fix. Even the economists cannot fix it. Right? It's extremely difficult. It's extremely hard, and it's been affecting many people in the United States. I just want to say there's some people out there who are making good money. Not everybody's poor, not everybody's struggling, but majority of people at the moment are struggling, and no one knows how this is going to be fixed. Like, I don't know. I don't see any solutions to this. But there is something that can happen, right? And I have an idea what can happen. One, we need to build affordable homes. Like, we need to make things more affordable. In the United States, back in the days, not even a long time ago, you could have $5, go to a restaurant, and eat as much as you want. You could be making $9 and rent an apartment. You could be making $40,000 a year and get a house, right? It was easier. Why am I saying this? Because this is very important. people, you didn't have to move to the city to get a job. There was factories in the countryside. There was factories in the rural area, and the rural areas are much cheaper. So you can live in rural neighborhoods and then commute to work, then go back home. So you can make like $15 an hour as long as you're commuting, right? That was an option. So that would transfer some people from rural. That would prevent people from moving from rural to the city. So the city was more affordable. Now you have more people moving to the city because that's the only place to get a job, right? Because the rural area corporations are moved out. They have either shut down because they cannot compete with cheap labor from the other international countries, or they have found another ways of escaping the loophole by moving their corporations closer to the major cities. So we need to invest money. We need to put money into the rural area. There needs to be allocations. The government, the city planning, the states, they need to move different companies in different areas to ensure that people, to ensure that there is at least, okay, how do I say this? To ensure that people are not constrained to be in a city where it's too expensive. They just move out of the city and they live in the countryside or outside the city and they work outside in those areas. But here's the challenge though. I remember in about 2024 last year, there was a warehouse, Amazon warehouse in Charlotte, North Carolina, in an area outside Charlotte, right? And you may think that because it's outside Charlotte, you may think that the prices of an apartment should be cheaper, but there was an apartment nearby, and the price of that apartment in that area, it was $2,000, right? The average pay for that warehouse worker for that Amazon warehouse, it was $18 an hour. So I want you to imagine, if you're watching this video, it's illegal for any company to build a huge apartment in such a rural area and then bump the prices, because they know that people are gonna move in to work at the nearby warehouse. And also real estate companies, they do projections. They project the next 10 years. They will say, okay, if we build a warehouse here, if we build an apartment here, there's going to be more corporations building around here. So anyways, it starts with, and this happens at the same time, right? You find one company is the one building a warehouse, building a warehouse, building a factory, then it's the one also building an apartment. So when that happens, these companies, they can raise the price as much as they want, because they know that a person who works at Amazon would eventually make, I don't know, $18 an hour, and then they will spend almost 90% of their paycheck on that apartment to live nearby. So all of this behavior is being played out in the United States, and there has been no regulations. Now, do I think regulations are good? I don't think so. I think regulations disincentivizes people from from investing, from doing what they're supposed to do. But at the end of the day, there has to be solutions. There has to be a better way of doing this. There has to be a better way of fixing this problem. This coming week, I have a debate, which is a climate change debate, and my position, which is position group 3, is to advocate for taxation or subsidies or pricing. How can we reduce climate change? How can we reduce carbon footprint? Right? Should we tax the gasoline vehicles, or should we regulate the EV mandates? Should we regulate should we regulate the use of gasoline vehicles, or should we subsidize electric vehicles or the manufacture of electric vehicles, or should we price the carbon footprint? If a company emits 10%, 50%, 20% of the carbon footprint, should they be reliable? Should they be able to pay some kind of prices, some kind of tax, tax price on those carbon footprint? So if somebody flies an airplane, right? If you're flying an airplane, for example, this is a good example. If you fly an airplane, right? An airplane, let's say Fly Emirates, right? The Flight Emirates flies from Washington DC to, I don't know, Dubai, right? And they said the average emission they are emitting is 20% of the emission, and then they are taking the passengers. The average passengers they are taking is like 200 people they're taking. Divide that percentage emission to number of passengers, then each passenger has to pay some specific price. So if they buy a ticket, on that ticket they subtract a carbon price, a carbon pricing, or tax the passenger. So think of it like a person each time an airplane flies a passenger, that passenger is responsible for a specific kind of footprint they're emitting into the atmosphere. So that would be my initial debate. But this also goes to pretty much everything. If a company borrows money from the government and they want to build the company, they want to improve the society, why would the company build corporations but not hire any worker? If the money they are borrowing comes from the workers, right? Because the companies borrow money from either from the bank or they borrow money from the government, and that money comes from the government, comes off as sort of some kind of taxes. So all of these things are happening, but the most important key to know is that we're in this situation where people don't get the jobs, people don't get hired, and nobody's working on it, nobody's thinking about it. It's a problem, nobody knows how to fix it, but I'm pretty sure that it's gonna be fixed someday. There'll be solutions, but for now, let's wait and see what's gonna come next. That's enough for today. Thanks for watching. Like always, see you tomorrow. Ciao ciao.